Imagine waking up one morning to a world gone silent. You reach for your phone, no signal. You open your maps, no GPS. You try to transfer money, bank systems are down. At airports, flights are grounded. Control towers go dark. Cargo ships drift off course. Stock markets freeze. Emergency services lose coordination. And no one knows why. This is what would happen if communication satellites suddenly stopped working. They're invisible to the naked eye, orbiting quietly above us, thousands of kilometers from Earth. But they are the pulse of our modern civilization. Every message, every transaction, every navigation point relies on them. We rarely think about them. We don't see them. We don't hear them. But they are always there, linking continents, synchronizing time, guiding planes, powering economies. Without them, the digital world collapses. And with it, the physical one. So who controls them? How many are there? What secrets do they carry? And what vulnerabilities do they hide? This is the hidden world of communication satellites. A silent architecture holding up the noise of modern life. A fragile web of power, precision, and mystery. And today, we're going to uncover it.
Above us, far beyond the clouds and the reach of our eyes, drifts a vast and silent architecture. A network of satellites, some active, some defunct, some forgotten, circling the Earth in quiet precision. Today, there are more than 7,500 active satellites, and thousands more that no longer function. They've become space debris, fragments of past missions, floating relics of our technological ambition. Many of these satellites are owned by private corporations. SpaceX's Starlink has launched thousands, building a mesh of global internet coverage. OneWeb, Amazon's Project Kuiper, and others race to blanket the planet with connectivity. They're not just tools, they're strategic assets, shaping who controls access to information and who gets left behind. But not all satellites are listed in public databases. Some are classified, operated by governments and military agencies. They're designed for surveillance, intelligence gathering, and defense coordination. They watch, they listen, they intercept, without ever being seen. Together, these satellites form an invisible web that powers our daily lives. They connect the internet, mobile networks, television broadcasts, GPS navigation, financial transactions, even ATMs. Every time you send a message, check a location, or swipe a card, a satellite is quietly doing its job. This orbital network never sleeps. It spans continents, oceans, and time zones, linking everything from rural villages to megacities. And yet, most people have no idea how many satellites exist, who controls them, or what would happen if they failed. We live beneath a digital constellation, woven from ambition, secrecy, and necessity. A system that reflects our progress, but also our dependence. And in that silence above, there's a story waiting to be told. Communication satellites operate like mirrors suspended in space, receiving signals from Earth and bouncing them across vast distances with astonishing precision. A signal is sent from a ground station, travels upward through the atmosphere, reaches the satellite, and is then reflected back down to another point on the planet. This silent relay happens millions of times a day, enabling everything from phone calls to live broadcasts to emergency coordination. But not all satellites orbit the Earth in the same way. There are three primary types of orbits, each with its own purpose, advantages, and vulnerabilities. Low Earth orbit, LEO. These satellites fly between 500 and 2,000 kilometers above the surface. They move fast, completing a full orbit in about 90 minutes. Companies like SpaceX's Starlink deploy thousands of LEO satellites to create global internet coverage. Their strength lies in low latency, but they require massive constellations to maintain continuous service. Medium Earth orbit, MEO. Located between 2,000 and 20,000 kilometers, MEO satellites are the backbone of GPS systems. They strike a balance between coverage and speed, allowing devices on Earth to pinpoint locations with remarkable accuracy. Though fewer in number, their role is critical for navigation, aviation, and logistics. Geostationary orbit, GEO. At 36,000 kilometers above Earth, GEO satellites rotate at the same speed as the planet. From our perspective, they appear fixed in the sky, hovering over a single point. They're ideal for television, telecommunications, and real-time data transmission across large regions. Their coverage is vast, but they suffer from higher latency due to their distance. Each orbit represents a different layer of our technological ecosystem. Together, they form a multi-tiered network that powers modern life, from streaming videos to guiding aircraft to processing financial transactions. These satellites are more than machines. They are the silent architects of global connectivity, and though we rarely notice them, they are always working, reflecting, relaying, and sustaining the pulse of civilization. Space is no longer a distant frontier. It's a booming market, already surpassing $500 billion, and growing rapidly with the race for satellite internet. What was once the domain of national space agencies has become fertile ground for private corporations vying for orbital dominance. Week after week, companies like SpaceX launch swarms of satellites into the sky, weaving an ever-thickening mesh, a synthetic constellation that now wraps around the Earth. But this technological revolution is not neutral, it's not free, and it's far from equitable. Whoever controls space, controls information, and in a world where data is more valuable than oil, orbital control becomes a new form of geopolitical leverage. Satellite internet, though marketed as a global solution, risks becoming a luxury commodity, deepening the divide between those who can afford to connect and those who remain in digital silence. Picture a remote village where the night sky is no longer just stars, but streaks of light, satellites crossing overhead like silent messengers. Who decides what gets transmitted? Who has access? Who is left behind? The promise of global connectivity becomes a double-edged sword. Are we building a network that unites the world, or a web that entangles it? As satellites orbit silently above, the map of privilege below is redrawn. Decisions made in corporate boardrooms thousands of miles away ripple through communities that were never consulted. Space, once a symbol of collective exploration, is now a chessboard where the future of communication, surveillance, and influence is being played. And on that board, each satellite is a strategic piece. Each orbit, a line of control. Each signal, a promise, or a threat. The space race is no longer just scientific. It's economic, it's political, and profoundly ethical. Not all satellites beam down Netflix or help you navigate to the nearest cafe. Some serve far more covert purposes. They're designed to intercept communications, monitor military installations, or even blind enemy satellites. These are the silent eyes of a conflict that unfolds not in trenches, but in orbit. During the Cold War, both the United States and the Soviet Union had already launched spy satellites, capable of observing strategic movements from hundreds of kilometers above. They were the sentinels of a global paranoia, circling a world split by ideology and nuclear tension. Today, that race hasn't ended. It's simply evolved. China, Russia, the United States, and India are now locked in a new orbital arms race, where satellites don't just watch, they act. Some are equipped to disable rival systems, jam signals, or even execute kinetic strikes. These are invisible weapons, silent and precise, yet capable of immense disruption. The militarization of space is no longer a distant possibility. It's a reality, unfolding quietly, beyond public scrutiny. Each launch may be civilian or military. Each orbit may be peaceful or strategic. And each satellite may be a tool of connection or confrontation. Imagine a satellite that looks benign, drifting over the equator, but inside, it houses sensors that can detect underground bunkers, intercept encrypted transmissions, or track the thermal signature of a moving convoy. Now imagine another satellite approaching its target, silently disabling its optics, leaving it blind in the void. Space has become the new theater of operations, a battlefield without borders, where war is waged with algorithms, radar pulses, and electromagnetic interference. And perhaps most unsettling, this all unfolds beyond the civilian radar. While we gaze at the stars in wonder, others scan the sky for strategic advantage. The question is no longer whether space will be militarized. The question is, who will control it, and to what end? Every rocket launch leaves something behind, not just dreams of exploration, but physical remnants, spent boosters, decommissioned satellites, shards of metal drifting aimlessly. Space, once a symbol of the infinite, is beginning to feel crowded. Today, more than 36,000 large objects orbit the Earth. And there are hundreds of thousands more, too small to track but large enough to puncture a spacecraft or destroy an active satellite. Each fragment travels at blistering speeds, turning even a forgotten bolt into an orbital bullet. The danger isn't just technical, it's systemic. A collision between satellites could trigger a chain reaction known as the Kessler syndrome. One impact creates debris, that debris collides with other objects, and so on, unleashing a storm of fragments that could render Earth's orbit unusable for decades. Imagine a sky that's blocked, not by clouds, but by junk, an environment so saturated with debris that launching new satellites becomes impossible. Communication, navigation, climate monitoring, all frozen. Space debris isn't just a technical challenge, it's an ethical warning. It reminds us that even in the void, we leave a footprint. That ambition, without responsibility, can close the door to the future. Space is not infinite if we fill it with waste. And if we don't act now, we risk turning orbit into a technological graveyard, where every fragment tells the story of a civilization that reached for the stars, but forgot to clean its path. Satellites are invisible. They have no face, no voice, no presence we can touch. Yet they hold up the architecture of the modern world. Behind every phone call, every credit card transaction, every airplane crossing the sky, there is a satellite working silently, orbiting above, unseen but essential. They are the quiet scaffolding of civilization, but they are also the scaffolding of control, because within this orbital web lies more than convenience. It holds power, economic power, military power, political power. As our dependence on satellite infrastructure grows, so does our vulnerability. A single malfunction, a targeted disruption, or a strategic denial of access could paralyze entire systems: communications, navigation, finance, defense. And not everyone has equal access. The digital divide extends into the sky, reinforcing inequalities that already exist on Earth. Meanwhile, the militarization of space accelerates. Satellites are no longer just tools of observation. They are instruments of influence, surveillance, and potential conflict. The sky has become a contested domain, where silent battles unfold far from public view. In the future, whoever controls the satellites will control the planet. Not metaphorically, literally, they will control the flow of information, the movement of goods, the coordination of armies, the pulse of economies. And so, the question we must ask is not just who is watching from above, but why? What values guide that gaze? What intentions shape that orbit? Because space is not neutral. It reflects our ambitions, our fears, and our ethics. And if we are to build a future among the stars, we must first decide what kind of civilization we want to project into the void. The sky is no longer just a canvas of wonder. It is a mirror, and what we see in it is ourselves.